this started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another author interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia, the Wandering Quill and the Wandering Scribe. And today I have a guest making her official debut here on the channel. Now, since the curious age of 7, my guest has been fascinated with creating stories, from picture books to short stories to full-length novels and even trilogies in the making. Growing up in Alaska inspired more ideas and wonderings of what ifs. And she moved to Portland, Oregon in 2013, but currently resides in Vancouver, Washington, just across the bridge to get the best of both worlds. In her free time, she enjoys snuggling with her dog and cats, cooking with her boyfriend, going to concerts, taking yoga and spin classes, playing guitars, selling stuff online, reading, drawing, editing, the works. But her favorite thing to do out of all of those is, of course, writing. So without further ado, let's give a huge round of applause to today's guest, author Emily Hodson. Emily, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome, Emily. I'm so excited to have you here on the show. Now, before we dive into your books and stories, is there anything else you'd like to add to the introduction?
No, you said it perfectly.
All right. Now, for those that are just learning of you right now, what are the stories that you have published? Because I had the chance to look at your Amazon page, and your stories are really, really incredible. So do you have those with you to share with our viewers and listeners?
Oh, like my previous work?
Previous works, if you have your current works with you you'd like to share, absolutely.
Yeah, so my previous works were done like when I was a little bit younger, so those are kind of going to get revamped, but the one I'm mainly focused on is my book Medicate Me. It's book 1 of a sequel that's almost done. So this is the book I am going to be talking about today, or this is the cover.
Nice. Medicate Me. I really, really like that name, and honestly, the cover is, very, very striking. Now, to not give too much away, I don't want to spoil it for people who may already have the book and are at a certain page, or people who are just learning about this right now. But what can you tell us of your book, Medicate Me?
Yeah, so it's a thriller sci-fi, a psychological thriller sci-fi. It's set in the year 2017 in Seattle during a fictional global pandemic, and it focuses on 5 millennial characters, like 25 to 35 years old type range, and they're all navigating this pandemic, trying to figure out like who is behind it or what it is, all these different theories, and they're struggling with their mental health. And as the book progresses, it gets more intense about what they find out about what's going on with the pandemic kind of thing, because there is a pharmaceutical shortage going on during this, and people are kind of getting anxious.
Ooh, oh my goodness. That almost kind of reminds me, I don't know why it reminds me of the movie Requiem for a Dream, just from what you described. I could be entirely wrong, but I do see some parallels a little with that. I could be wrong again, but that's the thing about books and authors. We write stories, and people can make their own inferences from them, their own comparisons. So before we dive deep into the creation of Medicate Me, let's talk a little bit more about you, Emily. So from your bio, you've always been fascinated with, the written word. Now, shouldn't have any issues, but if something does pop up, I can just edit those very easily. So I'll just make it really quick so that way it doesn't cut me off. So what would you consider like the origins for you as the author? How did this passion of yours come about for writing?
Okay, so you want to know like how this all happened, like to be a writer or to decide to be a writer?
Yes. So how?
And I was just saying like, Mom, I'm bored, and she turns around and gives me a notebook and pen and just says like, write something. And ever since then, I would like write little stories with pictures, and it just kind of like progressed up there as I got older.
Awesome. Now, what would you consider your aha moment? The moment you wanted to take your passion for writing and all of this and build a career of it as an author?
Yeah, I would say when I was 12, I started submitting like short stories to like the newspaper to try and win some money. And it was just fun to do. And just in classes like middle school, high school, I would take writer classes, sometimes journalism classes. And I kind of found out I really like more fictional writing or certain genres. And that's probably when I was like, I really want to do this for a living, or at least be like, do it as my passion.
Awesome. All right. All right. Now let's talk a little bit about Medicate Me and the history behind that of how that came about. So walk me through it. How did the idea of Medicate Me come about? And when you got that idea, what were the goals you had as the author creating this world, as well as the promises you were making to your future readers?
Yeah, so this was a very spontaneous book to write, because when the pandemic happened, I had a previous project that I was like halfway through.
Mm.
Pandemic kind of threw me off guard, and so one day, like I believe it was June of 2020, I just start writing in my laptop, first person, a handful of characters, wanting to put myself in someone's shoes with how potentially people could be reacting differently to the global mysterious pandemic. And so I was kind of like living through it, and then I wanted to fictionalize it, and that is like where it like started. And then I was like, I want the what was the other question about what I wanted to get from the readers to, or what was that?
Oh, yes. So when you were writing the initial draft of Medicate Me, what were sort of the promises you were internally making or thinking that you want to make these for your readers? I know a lot of authors are 50-50 on this, that some don't write with promises already made. Like that's one of their goals. Like when I write this, I want you to feel this or experience this. Some are the opposite. They do that with the intention that I'm writing this so that way people will feel this emotion or will have this thought. So what was that for you? What were your promises you were making to your future readers when writing this first draft of Medicate Me?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I was actually playing around with it and doing it for myself. And then about a year later, I took a couple different 10-week writer classes from Gotham Writer Classes in New York. Have you heard of them?
Yes, a very, very good, very, very amazing group. And I've heard nothing but great things about them.
Yeah, that was actually the push for me. Like it was called a novel first draft, where they help you push through the first draft by giving you like a bullet point step by step, and then at the end we would do an hour where we're all just writing off camera, or like go to the coffee shop, then we all come back and talk about our progress. And that whole concept gave me so much drive, knowing that other people wanted to push their first draft. And so because I was doing that for myself first, I realized, you know what, I need people to read this. I want to make it into something bigger than just people having like first person inner monologue, being scared, because there was like dialogue and stuff. Like I want to plot now to kind of make it more exciting, so that's kind of because some of my stuff reads like a journal a little bit,
Right.
beginning, so that was my, like, I wanted the readers to get a good time. I'd say give them a good time and give them a exciting, interesting distraction of a pandemic in my world, and just, have them kind of stop and think about what the message is. And yeah.
Absolutely fascinating. So now, once you were writing the initial draft, when did you sort of make the announcement to friends and family that you were doing this? Because I know some authors are very hesitant to share works with people, especially one's family. They like to save it towards the end. So did you tell your friends and family immediately that you were doing this? Or once the first draft was finished, did you let them know? And from either of those two stances, what was the general reaction like?
Yeah, so all of my friends and family knows I've been writing like my whole life, and they knew about my previous work that I mentioned that I'm revamping,
Mm.
but I probably started talking about it a few months after I did the two different 10-week courses. I did those back to back, and so I was like, all right, I think I want to tell people that I know that it's in the works. And I told them around the time when I was 75% done with it. So they were aware and like prepped and, to like support me or tell people that they know who might like the book. So I did definitely tell them when it wasn't even finished.
Nice. And from their reaction, did you feel a sense of like, I don't say validation, but your goals and your promises were fulfilled through them, that from their reactions, their responses, you knew that you were on the right path for your future readers?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They really liked the premise. They said it was something that they could see me writing based on the what it was all about. And yeah, they were really supportive, and it made me have more clarity to continue with the production of this.
Awesome. Well, that's really great to hear, because that actually leads now into the next question, which is one of few reflective questions, which is, and maybe you had these moments when you were starting off writing with your previous works to now, but as authors, when we work on our first books, we imprint a little bit of ourselves into our works. They are us, because writing a book is a very long and dedicated and sometimes very tedious process. It's not easy. It's very lonesome. It is probably one of the hardest things to do, to sit down and write at a computer or write in a notebook, jot down ideas to create a story from it. And then when we make the decision to share this with others, when we publish it, whether it's traditionally published, independently, hybrid, whatever, it's a very daunting moment, because with the rise of social media and the hype that it is already right now, it is both a blessing and a curse for authors. Because on one side, we are able to reach numerous other readers, fellow authors, build a community, build our own team, whether that includes narrators, editors, cover artists, beta and ARC readers, what have you. But then on the other side, we do leave ourselves exposed to hate speech, trolls, spam, a lot of negativity, which can be very detrimental to an author's mental health and their overall well-being. And of course, the dreaded imposter syndrome, which is always there in the back of our minds, just telling us we're not good enough, no one's going to read this, why'd you waste your time? It can make us feel deflated. So, Emily, when you began your journey writing, and then when you began writing Medicate Me, did you have those moments of heightened anxiety and or imposter syndrome? And either yes or no, what has disciplined you to continue going, to continue honing your craft as an author?
Yeah. So with your question about did you ask like if I had heightened anxiety during the process kind of thing?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I still have heightened anxiety. I've had it like the whole time I've been like a author, like that I started publishing books, because you're taking a risk of getting your feelings hurt, because if someone
Mm.
like your book, I feel like that means they don't like you, that they don't like the way you talk or write. Obviously, like a lot of books that are fiction and stuff are a reflection of you or something you experienced. And so there is a lot of high anxiety, where like, sometimes it could get maybe fake reviews or really mean reviews.
Hmm.
Totally okay. Like that was when I was in my like early 20s, mid 20s, but like I do notice that I don't have as much anxiety as I do now versus my earlier work, because the community on Bookstagram is really supportive, and
Hmm.
I feel like people don't like to just waste their time trying to bring someone down. I think a lot of it is focused on marketing themselves and getting themselves out there, making friends, regardless of genre, or maybe sticking to their own genre of building community. So I do have anxiety for sure. Like, and there's just so much risk going into it, if that makes sense.
That completely makes sense, because you definitely touched on something that I don't think a lot of my guests have touched on before. is that whenever we write our books, we write how in a way that, we speak when we tell stories. And sometimes I know as authors, and I know a lot of people who specialize in, the marketing side and the business side of the publishing world, they always say, don't always attach your self-worth to your book because it's not really healthy. But it's a little hard to do, especially if you're starting out, because the way that we speak and we tell stories and we share information with everybody, that's sometimes how we write our stories. And some people say like, oh, I didn't really like how this flowed, or the author's style of writing is really wonky, can't understand. They're going to interpret that as, oh, people don't understand me because of how I talk or something like that. And that could be very detrimental to an author's mental health and well-being. And this actually kind of leads into another discussion, which I've been asking my guests, and I would like to hear your thoughts on this, Emily, with some context to this question. So a previous guest of mine, Jasmine Young, posted not too long ago saying that we are now in a golden age of independent creators, whether that's artists, musicians, authors, content creators, the works. And I myself are inclined to believe so. I also began my writing journey during the pandemic, the quarantine, the lockdown back in 2019. And I was able to write most of my books during that time. But as I look back on it, I've been asking my guests this, what are their thoughts on this question? And some are on opposite sides. Some believe that we are in a golden age because there is such an influx in creative material. Others say that we are not, and slowly on the rise, in the sense that COVID and the lockdown just sped up the process. But some even go a bit further, saying that we are not in a golden age per se. We are in a new age, but not a golden age because, well, yes, there is an influx of new material. There's no passion behind it. And that coincides with the rise of AI being used as a tool to write books, being used as a tool to create book covers and stuff like that. So that's where some people see themselves on this stance. But for you, Emily, in your opinion, do you believe we are in a new age of independent creators, and going further, a new age of authors?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I would say I think it is a new age. Like, I think that it's opened up so many opportunities where there could be like pros and cons to it. But the fact that everybody's just like animals getting released from a zoo, but in the best way possible, you're open age, and like everybody is just doing exactly what they want. They're not sticking to one genre. It's like things are going outside of that genre, and the new age is creating more niches and more tropes and more possibilities. So I would say new age, and like I said, it could come with like maybe AI, maybe the artists are not getting much money because of AI taking over. There's so many things that will happen when it's so much more common. But yeah, I definitely, it's very new for sure. And I love it all pretty much.
Nice. And that's actually kind of now leads perfectly into my favorite portion of the interview, which is the business side of being an author, because I feel that the business portion of being an author doesn't get talked about as much because it is very important. Probably it's the most challenging aspect of being an author, being a writer. So as a little icebreaker question, Emily, when you published Medicate Me, did you do research into what path would work best for you? And I believe you self-published Medicate Me, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So with that decision, was that the main goal at the time, or was it something that you realized that would work best for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I wanted to start that way because it works best for me, working full time instead of emailing agents and publishing companies, like spending all my time customizing emails and pitches and query letters. I was like, you know what, like I am going to try this on my own since it's so common and I've done it in the past with my previous work. I'm going to still take the processes that I didn't take in the past to get it as cleaned up as possible and make it all as professional as possible. So I definitely was like, yeah, I want to run my own business in the mindset when I did start the self-publish for Medicate Me.
Awesome. Now, what would you say were some of like the biggest misconceptions or myths about the self-publishing journey? Because I've talked to a lot of authors, and some of them, it's very, very mixed. Some are traditionally published, some are hybrid, some are indie. And when speaking with indie authors, everyone says that, and myself being an indie author as well, that, indie authors is like the way to go. It's the new future. It's the new thing. And while that is true, there are a lot of things to consider, which is, number one, it's all out of pocket, which means you're paying for the editor, you're paying for the cover artist, you have to pay a print shop to publish all of your books, or at least print them out. And it's all on you when it comes to marketing, when it comes to traveling or going to booths. You have to make the first call. It's different as opposed to you're working for a company that does that for you. So how much research would you say that you went into that, understanding, what are the truths of independent publishing as opposed to, the myths that surround it that may inflate the ego of self-publishing?
Yeah. So actually, I kind of looked at it this way, just how I write my books, where it's spontaneous, it's not outlined. Well, I had a personal account with like people I knew from high school and stuff, like a decent following of like people I don't know, people I know. And I noticed on my personal page, people didn't take me seriously. So the last 2 years, so 2 years ago, I made an account from scratch. And I was like, as I dove into it, as my followers were like getting larger, I just literally did, like, I just jumped in and took advice from other people, and I just picked and pulled what I wanted to do. But yeah, I had to supply the cover, and I paid for Microsoft Office, $70 a year. The editing is very good, but I also go through betas, and I've gone through ARCs. Those are like free, but I don't ever pay. I kind of tried to improvise saving money, and that just happened on the fly.
Absolutely, 100%. And then from that mindset of, okay, all right, I'm going to publish, whether it's independent, self, or hybrid. The next stage after that is, okay, who am I publishing for? Understanding the audience, which I definitely feel is very huge, and sometimes probably one of the most difficult aspects of being an author. So for you, Emily, do you have a good idea of your audience for Medicate Me? And in your opinion, when should an author really take into account who their audience is? During the drafting phase or during the marketing phase?
Yeah. So are you wanting to know, like, if I know what type of audience, and like to say what type of audience for this book, for your first?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Yeah. So for that one, I would say I think that this book attracts people who are one of those readers who they're not a particular genre preference. They just read what they like based on the synopsis.
Okay.
Kind of things. And that could be tricky because mine's a subgenre, like a couple different genres. So I feel like this book attracts people who are into mental health issues, curious about possibilities of the pandemic since it was so huge, and then just like overall, like getting a dive into a character's head where you're literally seeing what's going on in their brain in first person, towards like the beginning more, and spread out throughout with the plot and action weaving it, and they're intertwined. So if, like, let's say someone likes reading books or watching movies where there's like 3 to 5 characters where you're intertwining them and they're all coming together, and you can choose who your favorites are. I think it's good for people who like that altering thing. I know it can get confusing sometimes, and I did take a long time to write this book, like 3.5 years, because of making sure it all made sense as much as I could. And so, yeah, I would say if you like first person in your head, what do you call it? Black sheep characters. They're not the you either like them, you don't, or they grow on you later. And then with the mix of like thriller, psychological, sci-fi mixed in all together, I feel like if you're open to like all possibilities of like books and movies that are just kind of like a wild card, that's kind of who I would say would probably like my book.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads now into the readership, which in my opinion is probably the most challenging, because the audience is, of course, a large group of people who you try to market to, which is something that, excuse me, that all authors say that's who you market to, the audience. But the readership, those individual people who are going to pick up your book, those are the people that we should be looking into in addition to the audience. And when looking at readership, we also have to understand is, okay, this book is written in a particular style for a particular reader, for a particular audience. And the readership, as I've learned, there are 4 classes. There's middle grade, YA, New A, which is new adult, and adult fiction. And each has its own set of unwritten rules and expectations for not just the author, but also for the reader to let them know what they're getting themselves into. Now, for you, Emily, where would you say Medicate Me falls under? And as the author, how challenging was it to write with that readership goal in mind?
Yeah. Did you say there was new adult and then adult, right? As the
Yes.
last. And is new adult, I've never heard of new adult. What would that be in your opinion or knowledge?
New adult for me is like that transition period from young adult to adult fiction, where for new adult, you are taking, I don't say taking risk, but you're now moving into, mature themes, mature styles of storytelling, prose, maybe a little bit more advanced, but not too advanced where it's like adult fiction. And when it comes to the audience, you're now getting the best of both. You're getting young adult readers, preteens, and of course, young adults, but also adults who would also pick up this book and enjoy it.
Yeah, I would say, because I did get feedback from a reader who said it could easily pass as a very hard PG-13 light rated R movie. The conclusion, I have a content warning because there are triggers, but I did get feedback that it's not the most graphic book in the world, and it's like it doesn't have like a lot of like things that are going to make someone go, because we watch movies that could be PG-13 or R. So I would actually put it in, based on what I've noticed, the age is like age 60, kind of like it, like kind of. I would say new, not the most graphic, adult for.
All right, that makes sense.
At 60 though, that's new, right?
Yeah, yeah. New adult will definitely be, that transition period, that grace period where, people from both the adult fiction side and young adult side can definitely enjoy it. Which also, that, talks about, an author's style of writing and how they, approach storytelling. That, we want to, showcase our individuality. We want to showcase who we are as authors. But if we're writing in a particular genre or writing in a particular style, we have to acknowledge, okay, people who are in this genre or people who enjoy these types of stories, they have an expectation. They expect stories to go about this way. And yes, we try to subvert the genre or at least change it up a bit, but not too much. We want it to be familiar and yet somewhat different. But that's not very easy to do because, again, a lot of readers have expectations. So, as an example, let's say you're writing a book that is set in the high epic fantasy genre. Well, people are automatically going to assume, oh, okay, like Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. But your book, while it may have elements of that, could be entirely different. And that could be both a good thing and a bad thing, depending on if it still keeps the reader's interest. So ultimately, Emily, when you were writing Medicate Me, what was sort of the challenge of balancing these scales? On one, you have your individuality, which you want to showcase. But on the other scale is sort of like you're acknowledging the genre, you're acknowledging the authors and the books who have come before, who are possible influences for Medicate Me.
Yeah, my were because I read thriller barely, if any. I watch a lot more sci-fi movies than I read them because I resonate more with. I'm a visual person, and I visual, and then I do my research to make sure that I'm aware of how something works for that type of thing. And thriller books, though, my challenge is that every psychological thriller author has their own style, so I have to kind of like do my style but also try and make it traditional. But at the same time, it is a gamble when it's like a couple different genres and people might expect one thing and not the other. Because also for me, I notice readers have a preference, with style of how the story is told.
Absolutely, 100%. And again, that comes with, training and just, honing one's craft and skill to really find their authorial voice. It can take, a very, very long time, because ultimately, at the end of the day, we're not trying to write like the authors of the past or authors who are out now. We don't want to do that. We don't want someone to pick up our book saying, oh, this person writes like Stephen King. Well, that's a fair compliment. We don't want to be compared to, because every author is going to be, very different. As you said, Emily, that every author has their own style. Well, what's mine? What's my style of writing? How do I showcase me? And that is a very, very challenging thing to do, which again goes back to what you said before, Emily, where just like readers, authors shouldn't be constrained to just one style of writing. They should experiment. If they like fantasy books, try writing in the fantasy genre. If they like noir books, try writing books that have that noir feel. Get an understanding of how each author writes and see how can I incorporate it into my own, which now leads to probably one of the most important reflective questions in the show. So I'll lay some context for this, Emily, because it's a very, very loaded question. So I've been doing this show now for about 6-7 years, and I had the opportunity to meet a wide range of authors, as I mentioned before, from indie, hybrid, traditional, aspiring, debuting, returning, so forth. And I've learned a lot from all of these incredible men and women. And the one truth that I got from one guest is this. In this industry, there is no guarantee that your debut novel is going to be the start of your legacy. Now, what I mean by that is, as authors, we have these two paths: to be an author and to be known as an author. One is dedicated to the art of storytelling, honing the craft. The other is dedicated to the business side, the marketability of one's book. And they both lead to the same goal, which is the start of one's success, building one's career and legacy, one's brand. But the hard truth is, in this industry, it's a 50-50 chance, maybe not even 50-50. There are exceptions to the rule, of course. There are many authors whose first work or works did launch their careers, but ultimately, that's not going to be the case for everybody else. And that can be a hard pill to swallow for, aspiring authors or upcoming writers.
Follow.
Nice. And that actually leads into the question, Emily, which is, with everything you've learned in your career, from the highs and lows you've encountered, how would you help a fellow author and writer really understand that, while yes, in the publishing industry, it's not a get-rich-quick money scheme. There's no guarantee your book's going to be a financial success, but that shouldn't stop you from honing your craft if you're truly passionate about this industry and your goals are realistic and achievable.
Yeah. So you want to know what I would tell new writers starting out, how to approach this in order to be like satisfied overall,
Yes, absolutely.
Oh yeah, that's definitely. I think that with new writers, I feel like there's a lot of expectations at the beginning, because I had that, like, I need to be a bestseller, I need this in a certain amount of time. But for me, I would say write because you want to write for yourself. Like, for example, I've actually read my own book several times and I enjoy it. And that's kind of pompous to say. I thought it was pompous to say, but at the same time, I feel like I believe it when they say write a book that you would read. So write for yourself and go into it with a plan, but know that it is not a failure at all if you don't become like the 1%. If you don't make like even a couple $100 a month is hard, like, just know that if one person reads your book, I mean, I know that sounds small, but like if you're just starting out and let's say one person reads your book in a couple months only, that's like the baby step to reading more. And then maybe you'll get 10 readers or 100 in your lifetime. I wouldn't pay attention to the numbers. I would pay attention to the impact, because I get really thorough feedback from people, whether they are familiar with me and chat with me on side chats, like Instagram friends, or someone who doesn't even know me. If that book impacted somebody, that is probably why I will probably write for the rest of my life, regardless of the money,
Absolutely. And that's, very well said, Emily. And also to add to that, grit transforms into talent. It may be your 5th book, your 6th book, maybe your 15th book that really gets your name out there, that it is the book that's the one that gets people's attention, that lets people know this is you, this is what I write. And when that does happen, you can tell both your new fans, hey, if you enjoyed this, check out my other works, as well as your returning fans saying, thank you guys so much for being with me along the way. Your support is invaluable. And on that topic of support, that leads to another fun question, which is networking, which is huge in the indie author world, because as authors, it is a grind to really, really market one's book. And sometimes it helps having friends in high places, whether that's friends in the publishing industry, whether they have a print shop or they work at their own press house, or maybe authors who have been in the business a little bit longer, who have understood, what are the changing natures of the publishing industry. And sometimes just having a good group of people to read each other's work, to get honest feedback and critical feedback, which is important. So for you, Emily, this is a 2-part question. In your opinion, how essential is it for authors, in your opinion, to really branch out and build their networking team? And also, are there any people you would like to give a personal shout out to who have helped you along the way?
Oh, yeah. I think that it is very essential, on top of marketing, that you need to build a community. You need to, oh, sorry, one sec. My phone said 20%, but I'm good for the interview. I think it's good to go into it with intent, right? Like, you talk to readers and writers, you get to know what they like reading. You like see if you want to expand to different genres to be friends with, or just stick to your niche. And from what I noticed is I have friends from all different genres, and that actually helped me more, because the more variety, the more opportunity, versus, because, if you just have fantasy friends, not all of them are going to like your fantasy novel because of, expectations of the genre. Whereas you have all this variety of people who you support them as and then that's where you can get the wild card readers if your book is maybe not the exact niche someone might looking for. Because I've just gotten so many different people reading my book who don't normally read it. And I was going to say that like a writer group where people, like if you're in a writer group where all the fellow writers share each other's stuff, tag people, that's gotten me a lot of sales. And then, and I'm going to do a shout out after I answer that, because I have gotten like so much support with readers and writers and authors. And I think that you don't need to be shy. Hit like, if you like it, comment it like, oh, I really like your cover. Who did that? Or, just like kind of literally make friends online is what I'm saying. Like, don't do it as a transactional thing. Just do it as like supporting one another, or maybe talking about a writer problem. Like, oh, I got a writer's block, because these people that I really support and they support me, they're like, I really like them as people that I haven't met. And so I would just say, talk to everybody, like follow who you want. I just personally like follow pretty much anybody. If that makes sense,
Absolutely. And are there any people specifically you want to give a shout out to who have helped you along the way?
Yes, there are a lot, but I'm gonna just condense to the main ones. There is a woman who she published a children's book, and she just is really good at supporting people. And she's also a writer, an author for short stories. And her name is Sarah Risk, R-I-Z-K. Yeah, she has a really good children's book that I reviewed and read. And Sarah Risk was my very first friend, like who we started talking, and she started being intrigued because my book is also an audiobook in the making that I add, but that's another thing. But yeah, like she was definitely the first one, and in my group chat of like it's like an indie author group chat where we all like promote each other and do like release posts or like a release story with your link. Michelle Dawn, DAWN, she is so supportive of helping indie authors out. And that was like one of the main reasons that I got noticed from like word of mouth. And there is just like William Sullivan is a thriller writer who writes children's book, just so much like giving shout outs. And then a recent one I had was Madeline Vaughn, Vaughn, thriller author. She interviewed me last time. Very just, like there's, gosh, I'm like looking at all my, yeah, there's like so many people. Oh, there's an author that I really want to, I'll do this one. Nikki Elizabeth is I believe she writes sci-fi dystopian author Nikki Elizabeth. I said I have so many books come to mind at the moment. So hopefully that gets their name out.
Absolutely. And as we near the end of this amazing author interview, Emily, a final question, and I think you kind of answered it before, maybe you can go a little bit more, which is, with everything you've learned in your career as an author, building your community, building your networking team of fellow authors, editors, the works, and everyone who's helped you along the way, the struggles and hurdles, what is your word of wisdom to fellow writers and authors watching this interview right now?
Yeah, I would just say join the fun, join the club. I say club as in Bookstagram. I would just say just make a page. Instagram already promotes new profiles. That's how people randomly followed me. So I would just say make a page, join the follow trains or like writer groups, stuff like that. Talk to people, play around with things, and you'll eventually get the hang of it. I think it took like 6 months to a year to actually get what I want with marketing and readers. And I'm still like learning every day, but I just say start with the page if you're like a writer, because a lot of writers have pages and they don't have a yet. It's the process of having that support. But yeah, I would say just start out like that and just let the journey go with like, just keep writing, try and balance out social media, which is hard sometimes. Like I've been off social media like 2 weeks, not posting anything. And that was hard for a few days, but I also encourage people to take breaks, but definitely get involved with either TikTok or Bookstagram to just see that don't give up. You're going to have so much support where you won't want to stop like writing.
Absolutely, 100%. And that is a perfect ending to this amazing author's interview here on the show, everybody. A huge thank you to Emily for making her official debut here on the show. We wish her the very best. Now, Emily, where can people find you on social media if they want to reach out, as well as buy a copy of Medicate Me?
Yeah, so my Bookstagram handle is Emily Hodson, like Hodson, Emily Hodson _author. It's a verified page, so it's a verified author page. If you see any other accounts that do not have the little blue check mark, someone probably made a fake account. That's where I post and promote things. And in my link in my bio, you can obviously get it on Amazon with Kindle or paperback or hardback, and the audiobook will be in the future. But the thing is, I always want to encourage people to, the price is the same on Amazon and the bookstores. A few bookstores carry my book. The price is the same. The only difference is that if you support a local bookstore, you just got to pay a few bucks for like shipping. But I encourage people to, if they can, buy it local on the website I have listed, because the bookstores ship. Or you could buy it on my Poshmark or Mercari, where it's a signed copy sent directly from me. So I think, but really though, anything is fine. I just am saying like what each one has to like offer, or what the benefits of that would be to a business or something.
Awesome. I will link all that down below in the description of this video. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for another amazing author interview here on the show. Again, a huge thank you to Emily for making her official debut. We wish her the very best on her journey, as well as the continued success of Medicate Me and other stories she may have down the road. So make sure to follow her on all social media, which, again, I will link down below. And as always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, there's the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out, wishing you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. And until next time, have a wonderful day.